Dr. Gum, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you.
We are at the 33rd NASS, 33rd annual NASS, my 20th, by the way.
Yeah.
And you know, NASS has kind of ebbs and flows in terms of technology, and I think this year we are at one of our very important moments in technology. Of course, all the 3D printed implants, and of course consolidation.
Yes.
But I have to say the headline this year has got to be robotics.
Yes.
And my understanding is you are a new user of robotics. But before we get into that, can you talk a bit about your practice?
Yes.
And how that is and where you practice?
Yeah, so I practice in Louisville, Kentucky.
Yeah.
I joined the group that helped train me for a residency.
Mm-hmm.
Our group is probably in the top 3 right now as far as spine volume.
Wow.
So very busy group. There's 8 of us that are 8 of us. Actually, soon to be 9.
Okay.
Soon to be 9. We just hired a fellow that finished training with us in August, and so very big group, a lot of volume, a lot of exciting things going on.
So if someone joins your practice, they better be ready to work hard.
Yes, defingoing. So
it's like 7 days a week.
Not quite that hard.
Oh, okay.
We give them a little bit of a break.
So I'm going to I got to ask you about sort of your approach to technology. I mean, robotics is a little bit of, it's hard to kind of get your head around sort of what it is, how you're going to use it, why would you want to pay that kind of money.
Yep.
So talk about why you got an interest in this whole area. And by the way, is robotics the right word?
Yes.
Or is that, okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, I would use robotics. So right now, robotic assisted surgery.
Okay.
My interest in robotics actually came about because of where I see the next 5 to 10 years going.
Okay.
Right. So the technology we currently have, depending on what platform you're discussing, helps us in the OR, right?
Yeah.
It helps with reliability, accuracy, efficiency. But more important to me is what the next 5 and 10 and 20 years look like.
Yeah.
Right? I think we're going to make the face of spine surgery look completely different in the future, which is good for our field right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so the whole process of deciding whether you're going to go put that big down payment on a system and then the annual payments after that.
Correct.
I mean, that's a lot of stuff to consider. How did you and your group work through all of that decision making, and what were kind of the key issues for you as you did that?
Right. So it's easy from a surgeon perspective. We see toys and we want those toys.
Yeah.
Right. It's more difficult from the hospital perspective. Right.
Oh,
so they want to show that the value is not eating into a margin, or it's going to add not only patient value but value to them.
That's right.
Right. And so we had an agreement with the hospital to do a trial period to make sure that we were adding value from a hospital perspective as well.
And when you're looking at technologies like this, I'm assuming, so my analogy would be a farmer. Farmer's going to buy a big piece of expensive equipment.
Yes.
He wants to use that from like 6 a.m.
Yes.
to 8 p.m.
Yes.
every day.
Yes.
So in your practice, now you just you had what? You've had it, how long have you had
We've
this?
had about 15 months.
All right, so how well are you integrating it into your practice, and are you the only one using it, or do some of the other guys use it too?
Good question. So as of right now, there's been one of my other partners that have started to use it. But to start with, for about 13 months, I was the only one using it.
Okay.
There's benefits to that because I don't have to worry about somebody else booking it. But the downfall to it is that my hospital starts asking, how come nobody else is using it?
But you're the guy.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And so all of my partners, with what we're going to discuss here in a little bit, with new updates, I think everybody's going to be interested.
Yeah.
And pretty soon we're going to be fighting for time with the robot.
Yeah, well, the robot's going to change. You know, I was thinking about this earlier. As I said, it's my 20th meeting.
Yeah.
Now, 20 years ago, I was writing about Stealth Station as like the coolest thing because it was the one time you could take this computer technology into the OR and really do something. In that case, it was taking imaging data and integrating it in the OR and helping the guy navigate basically where he's at.
Yeah.
So I looked it up. A computer chip 20 years ago, my first NASS, had about 3 million transistors.
Yeah.
Do you know how many transistors they have now? 10 billion.
10 billion, wow.
That's why surgical robotics is a possibility.
Yes.
And as you point out,
Yes.
it's only going to keep developing.
Correct. Correct. I think that this year at NASS, you see this huge explosion of new technology.
Right.
Right, which makes me very excited as a young surgeon, because we've made iterative changes that improve our field.
Right.
But in the next 5 years, it's going to look completely different in our OR.
So the other thing I look at as I watch how robotics is developing and being integrated is seeing how you can begin to integrate your instruments and your tools into it.
Yes.
So it's not like just the robot, it's how it actually works with other items. My understanding is that and think about Medtronic, they really integrate stuff. They're integrating StealthStation with Mazor.
Yep.
And by the way, we're going to ask them about their acquisition, but I just want to point that out. But I understand they're also going to be integrating it with some of their instruments.
Correct.
And I understand that, I guess, just got the press announcement about Infinity.
Yep.
So I'm kind of hoping we can maybe kick this off with Infinity.
Yes.
And see how that works. Is that okay?
Let's go.
Let's go.
All right.
All right. Hey, Billy. How are you?
Doing great, Robin.
Good,
How are
good,
you?
good.
It's
I'm
to see you.
good.
How you doing, Billy?
Dr. Gum, thanks for joining us.
Yes.
So we were just talking about the robotics and some of the instruments and how they can be integrated. And I was saying I had heard about Infinity, just saw the press release, and I'm kind of curious about it. So I wonder if you could help us out with a little demo, and maybe Dr. Gum, if you can kind of translate and how it all works.
Absolutely. Thank you, Robin. Thank you for joining. So we were highlighting the launch of our Infinity posterior cervical system here at NASS. This system is a more of what we'll call a procedural launch. So everything that we're doing from Medtronic, we're focused on surgical synergy, focused on the entire procedure. So with this system here, there's plenty of things that I'd like to show you with the system itself, but we're focusing on the biologics component of it. We're focused on the navigation component of it. This can be used with power. It can be used with neuromonitoring. So all those are coming into play as part of our surgical synergy umbrella. So we're really excited about it. There's some unique things with the system itself. First, the screw has 60 degrees of angulation. So we'll let Dr. Gum talk about the clinical importance of that, but we're definitely getting really good feedback of this increased angulation that we have with the screw.
Yeah.
Some of the other things we've added, we've got friction heads in the screw. So when the team put this thing together, they're focused on how can we make this easier? How can we make this surgery easier? They saw opportunities to address some of the shortcomings that are out there in the market. So friction head came into play, 60 degrees came into play.
Yep.
Navigation, we think, brings some huge clinical advantages, and we'll let Dr. Gum talk through that.
No, it sounds great. No, and one of the things we just talked about is how important it was to integrate all these things, and I'm glad you mentioned that. So Dr. Gum, can you explain how this all works?
Yeah, so first of all, they did a phenomenal job on creating the system. There's certain subtleties about the system that make a lot of sense. So to start with, the one thing that I really enjoyed about it was we're working on the cervical spine, so the instruments need to be a little bit smaller, right? So a lot of other systems use these big bulky instruments, so they downsize the instruments, they feel a lot more comfortable in your hand. Number two, what he hinted at with the 60-degree angulation is a lot of times, unfortunately, things don't line up very well in the spine. And so if we're doing a complex deformity or a big reconstruction, it's very helpful to have the tulips or the screws bend to where it's favorable to line up the rods or other instruments that you need to use. The navigation component of it, it's phenomenal that as soon as this was released, navigation's compatible with it, because in my experience and my practice, I love to use navigation in the cervical spine, especially with C2 or complex screws, or if it's a big revision, right? A lot of times the anatomy is distorted. So I think the integration of navigation, especially right at launch, is unbelievably favorable for the system, and I've loved it so far.
So you talked about the integration piece, and by the way, you mentioned biologics. So how do the biologics fit into all this? And then when you're talking about integrating this with StealthStation, can you do you mind just go into that a little bit more, just so as an outside. So I go back to the days that there's a lot of lining up and all that kind of stuff. So how do you actually integrate this in with StealthStation? But let's start biologics first.
So if I could, just from a biologic standpoint, we're showing MagnaFuse. So MagnaFuse is one of the products that came from the Osteotech acquisition a couple years ago. MagnaFuse is a you can see it here in the lateral gutters of this construct. but it's a demineralized bone matrix. And inside of this bag, it's a resorbable bag, but you have demineralized bone fibers. So instead of particulates, we have fibers. The fibers are giving us a conductive matrix for the bone to grow on, but we also have inductivity. So this is one of the most inductive DBMs on the market. The fact that there's no carrier, the fact that it's aseptically processed gives us that inductivity. So lastly, from a surgeon standpoint, not only do they want conductivity, they want inductivity, but they want handling.
But again, no carrier. That's pure, it's 100% DBM.
Correct, correct.
All right.
And so what allows us to do that is the bag itself.
Yeah.
So the handling
That's
characteristics of the bag at the end of the case, we want to make sure we can lay this down in the gutters and it stays where it's supposed to go. So
one of the biggest benefits from my perspective is a lot of times in the cervical spine we have to remove a lot of bone that's compressing the cord or the nerve roots, and because it's packaged like that, it allows us to lay it back down and not worry about it impeding on the spinal cord or the equal sac. And so I think that's very beneficial in these types of procedures.
So on the integration with StealthStation, can you just dive into that a little bit more if you don't mind?
And so some of the products in the past that get released, and they're not, people that are heavy nav users, they can't go ahead and use navigation combined with the product that just came out. And so they did a good job making sure that that was all integrated to start with. I think navigation, our center uses a ton of navigation. I think we're one of the top 3 in the country as far as navigation volume. And I don't use, I use it frequently, but one of my most important areas to use it on are these types of procedures. We're replacing screws at very dangerous areas, and so I think navigation makes this procedure or these types of procedures much easier and much less stressful for the surgeon.
You know, what I really like about listening to you discuss how you do this is how you are so good at integrating these advanced tools.
Yes.
And you're just like, yeah, it's terrific. I love hearing how you do that. And not everyone's like that. So
well, I'm a young surgeon. I like new toys,
right?
right? And so, fortunately, I've let our hospitals play ball, and they give us some of these toys that we could utilize as well. And so, for me, one of the biggest benefits in spine surgery in the future of it is integration of these new technologies. And so, I like to see new groundbreaking technologies that we get to roll into the OR and make a difference in our patients.
And so, when you are talking to patients about this, so when you explain what you do, certainly with the navigation and these new tools, and now robot, you're a robot owner and user.
Yes.
So what are the benefits that you talk to the patients about? And do the patients come in asking you for a robot?
Yeah, so the patients typically don't come in and ask about navigation, although we do explain to them that sometimes we use this type of technology to help. But here recently we've had a lot of patients coming in asking about robotic assisted surgery. And so some of that is marketing component, some of it's just what they hear and see on TV and across the country. And so I would say at least 1 to 5 patients a day in the office come in and they ask specifically about robotic assisted surgery. And
navigation is also part of that piece. That integration piece is all of it. All right. Hey, Billy, you're the best. Thank you so much. You bet.
Thanks, Billy.
All right. Hey, Doug.
Hey, Robin. How are you?
I'm good.
To see you. Dr.
I'm good.
Nice to see you. Yeah.
So first of all, thanks a lot for letting us come by and hear about all the systems and particularly the new robot. It wouldn't be right if we didn't start this with a question about your announcement last week. And it's the acquisition of Mazor. Congratulations. But could you talk a little bit about how that came about and what did that mean for Medtronic Spine going forward?
Yeah, thank you. Well, first of all, I tell you that we've got a long history of innovation, as you know. And Medtronic has had a number of firsts going clear back to pedicle screws, minimally invasive surgery, the introduction of navigation, OR and imaging with the Stealth system. So it is sort of a natural evolution for us. The partnership with Mazor obviously worked extremely well. It gave us an opportunity to explore the technology and work collaboratively with the Mazor team. And it just seemed like the next phase of what we needed to do as a business. We clearly see the value of this enabling technology, so we believe it's the platform of the future.
Well, you're right. Medtronic as a company has been first in all of these areas, StealthStation and so forth. So I brought Dr. Gum, he's my wingman.
Great.
And he's really here to help me understand and some of our viewers understand how he's incorporated some of these technologies into his practice. So Dr. Gum, can you explain how, in your practice, this has been a part of what you do.
Yeah, so actually I'll start with congratulating Doug and Medtronic with the acquisition. So I'm very excited about this and the future of spine surgery. And so I've worked the robot into my practice over the last, I would say 15 months, and it's been very successful. Patients have had great outcomes. The hospital enjoys it. They've seen a good perspective or improvement from their perspective as well. And so currently, we're using it for degenerative and deformity type cases right now, and my partners are starting to introduce it into their practice. And the preoperative planning portion of it, I think, is going to ultimately reduce a lot of waste in the OR from a hospital and surgeon perspective. It allows the surgeon to think about what they're going to do, and then implement that plan live time in the OR. The other benefit, so we're soon to hear about new updates with the current technology, and Medtronic has been a leader in navigation. Mazor has been a leader in robotics, and so the merging of those technologies makes a ton of sense, and we're going to see the value of that here very shortly in our OR, and so I'm very excited about that technology as well.
That's great.
To echo that, my interest in robotics came about of what I think our OR should look like in the next 5, 10, 20 years. It adds value now, but I think we're going to see a very transformative change in the way spine surgery looks, and what the inside of our OR looks like is going to be completely different. And so, we've had some experts give opinions on a recent SRS meeting, and they were excited about what spine surgery's done over the last 50 years. But at the end of the meeting, they're like, I hope the next 50 years gives us better answers to what we're doing now. And so I think this is a key portion of what what the future of the spine surgery is going to look like.
And to be really practical about this, when you do place a system like this at a facility, it takes support. And since the early 1990s, when you introduced StealthStation as a company, you've developed a lot of expertise in supporting doctors and clinics as they try to integrate and learn how to use these advanced technologies.
We have, and I would expect that to continue with this. It's we've got a long legacy on the navigation side of the business, the imaging as we talked about. So, kind of the combination of these two together hopefully positions us well to be uniquely different. And as Dr. Gum is noticing already, not only offer a differentiated technology, but really focusing on outcomes, clinical evidence, things that will ultimately drive better patient care.
Reducing variability, improving consistency, and
Correct.
ultimately be more efficient,
Correct.
which I guess
Exactly.
translates into lower cost.
Correct.
Right.
This is terrific. Listen, so next year, I think we're in Chicago, right, for NASS?
I think that's
I
right.
believe so.
So, these NASS, I think NASS is getting more exciting as we go along with all the new stuff. So I look forward to next year in Chicago. Maybe we'll catch up to you then, see what's innovative and changed since this year.
We'd like that. Yeah. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Doug, this has been
Appreciate it.
terrific. Thanks so
Thank
much.
you.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's fascinating, but it really seems to be about surgery synergy and integrating all these parts.
Yes, I agree. I think we're at the point now where it's not about the next screw or the next cage or the next widget.
Yeah.
It's about a solution for the whole procedure that improves the patient's outcome.
Yep. I don't see how you could say it any better than that.
All right?
All right, let's go.
All right, thanks.